Welcome back to the channel, my horror hounds. Tonight we delve into the dark side of the clock, into those silent hours where shadows twist and logic sleeps. We've got 3 terrifying true horror stories from the night shift, from those unfortunate souls who had to learn the hard way. Sometimes the scariest things aren't confined to fairy tales. They're real, and they're waiting for you when you least expect it. These stories are based on real events. So I encourage you to turn off the lights, grab your blankets, and prepare to descend into the darkness with me. We're diving deep into the unsettling world of the night shift, where every creak and groan could be something sinister. Or maybe it's just your imagination playing tricks. So are you ready to face the fear? Let's begin. Our first story takes us to a dimly lit hospital, where the silence of the night is broken only by the rhythmic beeping of machines and the soft footsteps of nurses making their rounds. Sarah, a young and compassionate nurse, was working the night shift in the surgical ward. She had always believed hospitals were places of healing, but tonight, her perception was about to change forever. As the hours crept by, Sarah found herself drawn to the old, abandoned wing of the hospital. It was a place shrouded in whispers and unsettling energy, sealed off from the rest of the building. Legend had it that the wing was haunted by the ghost of a former patient, a young woman who had died tragically within its walls. Despite the eerie tales, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something was calling to her from the abandoned wing. The air grew heavy as she approached the sealed doors, a cold shiver running down her spine. Curiosity overriding her fear, Sarah reached for the doorknob. It was ice cold to the touch. With a deep breath, she pushed open the door, the hinges groaning in protest as if disturbed after years of silence. The air inside was stagnant and thick with dust, the only light filtering in from the moon hanging high in the night sky. Shadows danced along the walls, taking on ominous shapes that sent shivers down Sarah's spine. As she stepped further into the abandoned wing, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. The hair on the back of her neck stood on end, her heart pounding in her chest. She could have sworn she heard the faintest of whispers echoing through the empty halls. Suddenly, a cold gust of wind swept through the hallway, extinguishing her only source of light. Darkness enveloped her, suffocating and heavy. Panic surged through Sarah's veins as she fumbled for her flashlight, her fingers trembling. As the beam of light flickered back to life, Sarah's blood ran cold. Standing at the end of the hallway, shrouded in shadows, was the translucent figure of a young woman. Her eyes, hollow and filled with an otherworldly sadness, seemed to pierce through Sarah's very soul. Terror lent speed to Sarah's feet as she turned and ran, her heart pounding against her ribs. She burst out of the abandoned wing, slamming the door shut behind her. From that night forward, Sarah refused to be alone, the memory of her encounter in the abandoned wing forever haunting her dreams. Our next tale brings us to a desolate highway where a lone gas station stood bathed in the eerie glow of flickering fluorescent lights. Locals told tales of strange occurrences, of whispers and shadows that danced at the edge of your vision. But for Mark, a young man working the graveyard shift, these were just stories. He was about to learn the hard way that sometimes, the legends we dismiss as folklore hold a terrifying truth. Mark's shift started like any other, quiet, uneventful, the monotony broken only by the occasional truck driver. But as the night wore on, a strange unease began to settle over him. The air grew heavy, charged with an unseen energy that made the hairs on his arms stand on end. It began subtly, a flicker of movement in the reflection of the gas station windows when no one was there, a cold spot that followed him around the store. He brushed it off as tricks of a tired mind. But deep down, a seed of unease had been planted, vivid, unsettling dreams that bled over into his waking hours. He'd dream of a shadowy figure, tall and gaunt, with eyes that burned like hot coals. It watched him from the darkness, a silent, menacing presence that filled him with dread. One particularly eerie night, as Mark was stocking shelves, he heard a soft whisper coming from the aisle behind him. It was faint, barely audible, but distinctly human. He spun around, expecting to find a stray customer, but the aisle was empty. He tried to shake off the unsettling feeling, but the whispers continued. They seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, growing louder, more insistent, whispering his name, taunting him. Desperate for any kind of distraction, Mark tried turning up the radio, but the music was distorted, replaced by a staticky hum that sent chills down his spine. Just when he thought he could take no more, the gas station door creaked open. Relief washed over him as a figure stepped inside, momentarily breaking the terrifying spell. But as the figure turned towards him, Mark's blood ran cold. It was the figure from his nightmares, tall, gaunt, with eyes that seemed to burn with a malevolent light. Mark stood frozen, paralyzed by fear, as the figure approached him, its movements slow and deliberate. Then, as quickly as it appeared, it vanished, leaving Mark trembling in the middle of the empty gas station. From that night on, Mark refused to return to the gas station. Our final story takes us into the heart of an industrial district, where rows of warehouses stood like silent sentinels under the watchful gaze of the moon. It was here, in the cavernous depths of one such warehouse, that John, a night shift security guard, would come face to face with a terror he could never have imagined. John had been working at the warehouse for months, his nights a predictable routine of patrols and security checks. The silence never bothered him. In fact, he found a strange comfort in the solitude. Little did he know that solitude was an illusion, and he was not alone. It started subtly. He'd catch glimpses of movement out of the corner of his eye, shadows flitting between aisles when he knew he was alone. He'd hear strange noises, footsteps echoing in the distance, boxes rustling, even though he was the only living soul in the entire building. At first he dismissed it as his imagination playing tricks on him. The warehouse was old, drafty, its silence amplifying every creak and groan. But as the weeks turned into months, the strange occurrences became more frequent, more brazen. One night during his routine patrol, John noticed something strange. A pallet of boxes, usually stacked neatly against the wall, was in disarray, as if someone had been rummaging through them. He checked the security logs, but there was no record of anyone entering or leaving the warehouse. Unease coiled in the pit of his stomach. He was no longer dealing with rats or stray animals. There was something else in the warehouse with him, something far more sinister. He continued his patrol, his senses on high alert, his heart pounding a heavy rhythm against his ribs. As he rounded a corner, his flashlight beam illuminated a chilling sight. Standing at the end of the aisle, partially obscured by shadows, was a figure. It was tall and slender, its features obscured by the darkness, but John could feel its eyes on him, watching his every move. Terror froze him in his tracks. He fumbled for his radio, his fingers numb, but the figure moved with a speed that defied logic. It lunged towards him, disappearing into the maze of aisles before John could even register what he was seeing. Adrenaline surged through him. He sprinted down the aisle, his heart pounding in his chest, desperately trying to find an escape from the nightmare that had infiltrated his reality. He burst out of the warehouse, gasping for breath, the cool night air stinging his lungs. John never returned to the warehouse. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more chilling tales. Stay safe, and good night. The Night Shift. A time for quiet reflection, for the world to sleep while a select few keep watch. But as we've explored tonight, it's also a time when the veil between our world and the unknown thins, when shadows dance and whispers echo with chilling clarity. Sweet dreams.